Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. I'm your host, Diane Gibbs, and I'm joined, this is a AIGA special thing that we've never done, and there's actual people in the room. Oopsie. They're the people.
Yeah.
Woohoo! Some alumni. It's really fun, and I'm on a PC. Tell anybody. Okay, so I have some questions, but I'm going to kind of set it up so you understand. This is, oh, my mom's here. Hey, Mom. And Jandon from your teacher.
Jandon! Hi! I love Jandon.
We have lost my glasses. Meaning me has lost my glasses. And David's here from Seattle. Awesome. Thanks for coming twice in one day, David. All right. So if you're new, you can always chat in the chat. And if you're here live, you can actually come and you can ask a question. We're going to have some time at the end. You're just going to come over here and ask a question if you want to, or you can tell me and then I can ask the question. But all these people are emerging or within that kind of emerging part of design. So you've been in the business for 0 to 5 years or maybe a little bit longer. I don't know exactly all the specs, but we'll get to that. So I wanted you guys to tell us a little bit about your knowledge about how you created your career, your creative career, how you've created opportunities within that, and decisions that made an impact on your career. So if you can start with career changes, or I know both Pim and Jeffy. So Pim, just say your name, where you work, and where you live. How about that? We'll start with that. So Pim, you start.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Pim Herr. I currently am at the Washington Post. I'm a marketing solutions manager. And so I'll just quickly premise and say, before we jump any further, I was a senior designer at Politico, so I promise I am from the world of design. That title may seem a little, not questionable, but, like maybe not as relevant right away. And then I'll tell you more of my story after we hear everyone else's intros.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Jeffy?
Hey, my name is Jeffy Thomas, and I'm in Philadelphia working at a architecture firm called Core Design Architecture as their marketing and just all-around throw Jeffy at any problem guy.
And tell them where you're from. And I know you're from Philly, but where are you from originally?
Oh, man. All right, so I'm from India, born in Bahrain, and then lived in India for 4 years and moved here to Philly in 2003, and I've been here since. Okay.
All right. And Abby is our hometown girl from well, she's not from Mobile, but she spent some time here, so we're considering her hometown more than y'all, the two of you at least. So Abby, tell us about you. And you went to school at Spring Hill.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Houston, Texas, but I went to Spring Hill College for 4 years. I got my BA in graphic design. I spent some time at the AIGA chapter in Mobile, had a lot of fun. And then I worked at Red Square Gaming. You guys Mobilians might know who Red Square is. But yeah, I worked for them for about a year. And then, and I got a job offer to work for Frame.io in New York. So we're a video collaboration software. And I do marketing motion design for these guys over here. So, yeah.
And so when did you move up there?
I moved up here in April of this year. So I've been here for almost October, like mid-October is going to be my 6-month mark. So
nice. And so, Pim, you were the only one that didn't tell us where you grew up.
So the origin story is a little lengthy, so I'll give you guys a really short one. Starts out sounding a little sad. I was born in a refugee camp in Thailand, a little town called Chonburi, and then we immigrated here when I was a baby. So technically, like my memories are more of America, but just growing up with that, you kind of had that refugee immigrant experience, bridging multiple worlds. Grew up in a small town called Menominee, Wisconsin, until the 5th grade. Moved to the inner city, Syracuse, New York, and then went to school at SU as well. So it was a new house in Maxwell Kid.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. So, Pim, you and Jeffy have kind of taken on new, your design career has been different maybe than most people. So I want you guys to kind of go through that just a little bit. So what you're doing now is what, and then what were you doing right before that? So
Okay.
you want to start and then we'll go to Jeffy?
Yes. Okay. So right now I'm a marketing solutions manager, and like I alluded to earlier, it may be like question mark, why, how did you get there? Right. So to bring it back a bit, it's actually kind of perfect because basically growing up in a world where I kind of had this like whole immigrant thing. When I say it like that in a refugee thing, it was more like, oh, wow, I didn't have a choice. I had to understand politics and policy. Right. And like, what does it mean to have power, to not have power? Because when I say a refugee, we literally do not have a country that I can point to say that's my hometown, that's my country. So growing up, I was interested in that as much as I was in, the arts, whether it was art, design, etc. And so when I went to college, I studied both. I studied creative advertising at Newhouse, and then we had a really good policy class or school. And so I also studied all of that at the same time. And the entire time I felt like my classmates and professors were like, we know kids do this, but we know they usually just do it to make it sound cool, but like you're actually passionate about this and this is scary because what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I don't know, but I believe in like social justice, and I believe there's a way to create a world of impact or more impact through smart design and strategy. And so I just kind of kept bridging those worlds, and that's how I found my way to DC. Worked at a public affairs firm, then went to Politico. I don't know how many reads you want me to get. And
you were doing design, right?
Yeah.
You were doing design at those, and you're in marketing. So are you still doing design, or is more what your role is strategy?
Yeah, it's kind of shifted a bit. And so to explain that, I was doing a lot of change management. I basically got into UX before I felt like the company was ready to. This is my previous job. And that's not to say that there weren't smart people there who knew what they needed to do. But, it's just like when you're you're like 2% more ready, right? And so I had to do a lot of the educating, right? So like, I'll learn this, I'll train myself, I'll come back, I'll teach you. I will teach a room of C-suite folks what to do. And that was from my junior design career into where I was as a senior designer. And so, just wherever I went, it was always a story of, I will learn, I'll come back and I'll show you. And I'm this tiny little Asian girl, like who's barely 5 feet, in a room full of people who, just on paper are so much more experienced than I am, right? And that can be really scary. But, at the same time, someone has to do the job of teaching design, because if you don't teach design to people, they won't see the value in it. And then suddenly they're making all these decisions above your head. And I was kind of tired of that life, especially when I realized like there's actually like, basically everything that you do, like as a designer, there's a cost to it, right? Like we may not want to think about that, but ultimately I realized like my ideas are kind of expensive. Wait a second, this MVP that I just helped you, design, that I wireframe, that I learned InVision for when no one in this company knew how to use InVision, like that costs millions. What does that mean then? And how does that translate? And so I thought, how can I kind of connect all these dots that I'm connecting for other people into my resume? And so ultimately that's how I ended up shifting over to marketing, to really make sure that I can say confidently, I understand, the business side, I can understand the, whatever it is to do with that kind of world. And so that's kind of how this may seem convoluted, but it's actually all super connected. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I'll stop here for a moment. And then if you want me to fill in later, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, sounds good. And Danish Dish just came. So, hey, I'm glad to see you. All right. So Jeffy, how about you? Tell us about your kind of foray into design, because you studied architecture.
Yes, I did. So I would say it started, before college. And when my dad was like, all right, let's apply for college. What do you want to do? And I said art. And I think I almost blew his mind because he was just like, you're Indian. This doesn't work. Indians are either doctors or engineers and such. So I just kind of was like, all right, what's close to engineering, but we'll keep it creative. So I went to school for architecture in Philly. Once I graduated architecture in 2007 when the recession was hit. So it was really hard. All of my friends that graduated were not finding jobs. I was an international student, so no company really wanted to sponsor me.
Because you have to get a 1 year. You have 1 year to get like a company to. You have kind of a grace period for a year.
Correct.
And then you have to have somebody sponsor you, and they have to fill out paperwork and pay some stuff, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of time, in a time where people didn't want to spend money and didn't want to spend time, and those are two really like valuable commodities. So I kind of took my chances and went back to school for my master's in digital media, and did that for 2 years. Graduated. In those 2 years, I got married and was able to get a green card and that enabled me to buy some more time, obviously.
And you love your wife. This isn't.
I do. Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And I know Jeffy, like I know Abby, and I can't wait to get to know him better. But I mean, Jeffy and I are friends, and we've seen each other in person. So
yeah.
But you do love your wife. You
do.
fell in love, and you got.
I guess I should have backtracked that a little bit, but yeah. So, but my first year out of my master's, it was really difficult. I still not having any internship experience just because I was like trying to get through school as an international student. No one was willing to hire me either in architecture or in digital media. So I just was kind of like starting to look for any job possible. And one day there was a job posting through a friend asking about if I wanted to work at a print shop as a delivery driver. And I was like, I want to work at a print shop, not as a delivery driver, but this was a good foot in. And, you know, it was just I feel like my journey's been a kind of like, okay, all right, I'll roll with the punches and I'll take that. And
you're so humble. You're not too good for anything. That's what I love about you, right? And you're like, if that's this is a job, I want to do it.
Yeah, and you know, it was a time where a job was a job. It paid. It was money, and it meant food on the table. So I took it. It worked, and I worked there for 5 years at this print shop in Philly. And I worked my way up from delivery driver to essentially running the large format department. Printing, you know, large scale prints for like essentially all across the country. But it was really good. I would say, you know, kind of like a good window into the design world and the print world. You know, people say print is going to die. If it is dying, that shop did not feel like it. We were busy all the time. So
your mic is rubbing your collar.
I am so sorry.
I'm sorry. I just can't focus. I can't even type rubbing. I don't have my glasses on. It's just falling.
Could you guys hear what I was saying, though?
If you were my student, you know I can't, like, if there's a pen clicking, somebody's just like, click, 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 click. I'm like, stop it! So
hopefully this mic will not do that anymore. Also, like, rub it in. But anyway.
I don't have my glasses on.
To continue, so like 5 years at the print shop, and Diane's gone. There, she's back. After 5 years at the print shop, I was kind of talking to a friend, and I was like, I don't think I could ever go back to architecture. It seems so stressful. I'm like 6, 7, 8 years removed at that point from architecture, and you know, of course, just kind of the way life works. I put that into the world, and the world decided to come smack me in the backside of my head. And I got a call from a friend of mine who started his own company and said, hey, we need someone entry level, and I'm willing to kind of invest in you and give you this chance and take it. And do you want it? And here I am. I've been just told people I don't want an architecture job. And I'm like,
but you were also doing all their design too, right? So you have
correct.
This design background now, and now you were able to do their design and their marketing.
Absolutely.
And they were like throwing you into the wolves of doing some architecture stuff as well.
Yes. Yeah. The marketing is kind of my foot in. It's what the bonus that, you know, helped me seal this job and kind of keeps me here. Hopefully my boss is not watching.
All right. So I think you had a drastic change. I know Abby kind of started out in animation here in Mobile, and then has been hired at Frame.io doing similar kind of work. Pim was still in design. So you switched. It's still architecture. It's similar. And I think one of the things that's great about architecture is that you have that really, your hand skills, all that stuff really feeds in. So there's still so many things, and design, you're learning about all the basics of design in architecture school. We understand. What about design, Jeffy, did you love? And from what attracted you that you would want to work at a print shop as a driver? And how did you move up? Like, what did you do in that driver position that got you more your foot in the door?
Essentially, I think you said it best, like nothing's beneath me. Just willing to hop on and help whenever help was needed, and not doing the, like, I'm a delivery driver, I don't have to worry about all this other stuff that's happening in the shop. And that interest kind of snowballed, and my side passion is I'm a paper cutting illustrator, and people knew that X-Acto knives were like one of my favorite things, and one of the large format things was using an X-Acto knife every day. And people were like, do you want to give this a try, see how you like it? And that's kind of, it's just really grabbing at whatever is thrown my way and giving it a try. It's like baptism by fire, really.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So Abby and Pim, obviously Jeffy moved from India, so he has a really big move. But Pim and Abby, you both moved for your current job from where you had been kind of more safety or spent more time. And then what is moving to a new city like? And was it scary or exciting? And Jeffy, if you have any tips there too, just chime in. But Abby, what about you? How long, Pim, have you been in DC?
So it's almost strange to say. It's been 4 going on 5 years coming this Thanksgiving, but I will let Abby start and then I will chime in after.
All right, since it's the freshest on Abby, what was it like moving to a new city?
Oh, I don't know. It's I feel like moving from Alabama to New York is like it feels a little bit like going from like a tiny fishbowl to like the bottom of the ocean a little bit. Like completely different way of life. Like you can't just get in your pickup truck and go to Walmart. Like you gotta, take the R and then transfer to the Q, and then like, I don't know. It's crazy. I don't know. Like moving to big
did you know anybody there? I mean, did you have a roommate? How did you find the basics?
So I had, I'm on a Facebook group actually, New York City motion designers, and I was able to find like a roommate through there. And so that worked out pretty well. But like other than her, like I really didn't know anybody moving up here, which is crazy. And in a way that really like ignited like my like fight or flight instincts, if that makes sense. Like it's very like, oh my God, okay, like, I'm going to learn as much as I can. I'm going to make as many friends as I can. Like, I'm going to, get my act together, basically. It really, like, gave me such, like, a burst of energy that I was looking for in my previous career. And, yeah, I don't know. I recommend it to anyone who's lived in the South most of their life.
So do you think of yourself as an extrovert or an introvert?
I'm, like, introvert 100%. But I don't know, the thing about like introversion is like, I don't know, all it takes is like meeting a bunch of like new people that like really care about you to really like bring you out of your shell. And I was kind of fortunate to work at Frame.io because like a lot of my coworkers all have like the best interests like in each other. So I don't know, so like being a part of that environment in New York City especially is like just extremely important. Just having like that's like support system of like people to tell you what like grocery store to go to or
right.
or tell you what like this marketing term means. Like it's just like, yeah, it's so great.
So one other thing is, so as an introvert and as somebody who's moving out or up to somewhere else, one of the things I think a lot of people don't realize is to ask questions about company culture. Did you ask about that, or did you get that from your interviews at Frame.io?
Oh, definitely. And because Frame.io is such a small, or not really small, we're just like a very new company. We're going on 4 years. And so part of that culture is still kind of budding and emerging, and we're still kind of trying to figure out what that culture is. But like definitely asking about it was like super important for me because I don't know, it's just like knowing that I can get along with everybody is really important. And we just take like company culture really well here, like really seriously.
Okay,
actually,
cool.
So.
All right, Pim, how about you? So moving from Syracuse down to DC.
Yeah, so I'll tell you kind of why the stakes were higher than just moving locations. So I hadn't driven for 4 years, like while I was in college, and suddenly I had to drive every day. So it was like, you're in a new place, you have to drive every day, you haven't driven, like, you know, like that. I also like, I'm someone where like, it takes, like, I'm high energy, but I'm also very much an introvert. So I'm this weird ambivert that's always toggling. So, you know, like when you want to ask for help, you really have to just lean in and be like, all right, like Abby said, it's all about instincts, right? And so there were so many firsts where I was just like, I don't even know what the climate of DC is like, because Syracuse, we joke, you live through all 4 seasons in one day. Like it'll be snowing one moment, hot the next, and DC is just very muggy. But DC is confused when it starts snowing a little because there aren't snow tires. And so, you know, there were so many things that I was just like, this world is nuts. And then I always joke and say I started from the bottom because I was hired so quickly. And I at that point I was like, I'm desperate enough. I want my foot in the door. I think this is the right place for me. You know, like I really want to learn. And I knew that the creative director who was taking me on was really going to like kind of help me learn. And so that was why I was like, I will trust you. So I moved, but then like it was so fast that I was like, where am I going to live? And so I found this basement apartment in this very nice old couple's house, in like this almost like a retirement community. And here I was, this like fresh college grad, and had no friends, no social life, not like just praying that I could drive to work every day. So just imagine that. But I always joke, I started from the bottom for real, my friends, like basement apartment to, I guess, an apartment now. So it's an upgrade of some sort, but you know, like it's been a wild ride in that way. And so I'll also note just really quickly something to add to all of this beyond just that weird experience of like having to, you know, go through those like kind of rough patches when you start. It's definitely, like Abby said, like you really have to find your people and your community. And so for me, AIGA actually was that community. I'm not being paid to say that. I know this is technically an AIGA event, but if anything, like what helped me keep myself together as a professional, as a designer, and as a person was definitely my AIGA community. Like the more I was willing to embrace that, the more I was willing to say, I'll go to these networking events, even if I'm like really shy, or if I have imposter syndrome, you know, especially during those junior designer days. Like I was like, I don't know, like, you know, like I was working for a company where we were like a small fish or a big fish in a small pond, right? Like, so if you knew public affairs, you knew who we were, you know, like like we were a big deal inside of this very tiny world, but outside of that world, no one knew what that was. So, you know, like the world changed once I started working for brands where it's a little bit bigger, but like that also shows you how to read people, right? So that's like a separate conversation. But I say all this to say, when I would go to these events, they'd be like, hi, my name is Pam, I work at XYZ. And people would just be like, what's that? Right? So then you're already explaining that before you can even explain who you are and why you're here. And so, you know, like just going through all those hurdles just taught me a lot. But if anything, it definitely teaches you how to have grit. So I know this is like kind of this abstract answer to Diane's original question. Do you want me to talk more about just like
what tip would you give somebody who is, and all 3 of you can answer this kind of quickly if you don't mind. What tip would you give somebody about either finding friends or getting involved or finding roommates or any tip for moving away?
My one thing is to say, like, no matter how scared you are, just do it. Do it, because the best thing you can do is like scale up in a way that you haven't scaled before, because the things you learn about yourself, about what you can overcome, and the things you can learn from others, like are like the weight of that will outbalance any of your fear. So all you have to do is just go for it. That's the one thing I'd say.
So Jeffy, you went to boarding school, and I know you and I talked about this. So it was a big help, I think, for you to not have lived at home since you were 14, right?
Correct. So it's 12.
Okay, 12. Man, your dad didn't like you. No, I'm just kidding. So can you talk about that, how that kind of was one thing that really prepared you, and then how you were able to assimilate into Philly and making new friends or anything like that? I mean, college is kind of easy because everybody's new, but.
I think I had kind of the opposite experience. I did a lot better in boarding school. Like I got into boarding school, and I think everyone was new there, right? Like everyone showed up on the first day, and everyone was kind of on a level plane. So doing that felt easier because we were all in it together. I came to Philadelphia University second semester freshman year.
Oh.
So even my roommate used to have a roommate who he was used to. And then all of a sudden there's this international student. This is a post 9/11 world. He knows that I'm coming from Bahrain, which is a Muslim country, but I'm Indian, so there's just there was a lot more that I had to like tackle, a lot more baggage that I tackled. But kind of in terms of like advice or something, I think that like just leaning into the discomfort of that and like actually putting in the work and giving a shit. Sorry about cursing, but like I think like actually caring about the relationships and the people that you're around just pays off so much. I think I have a lot to thank for because of that.
Yeah, because the job that you have now, you got from the relationships you had in undergrad, right?
Yep.
And you think of these friends as like family.
Essentially, yeah. Yes, we were in each other's weddings, so I would say that's pretty much family.
Yeah. All right, Abby, how about you? Any tips?
Yeah, just like what Jeffy and Pim said, just doing admittedly, this is a little bit easier to do in like a bigger city, but just like finding like your tribe and finding different clubs that you can join or different organizations you can join. I found one organization, Punanimation, New York City, and it's literally just like women animators. And I'm like I could never have like imagined, having a community like that. Like, I don't know, like anywhere else. It's just like, it's super cool. And we have brunch every month and like we all check on each other's like projects and I don't know. So just making friends that like aren't your coworkers is like, I don't know, just super great. Just like leaning into everything and doing your research and I don't know, just finding a community that's, like that you have at least something in common with.
I want to tack on to that, Abby. I think that I think the community, there's like multiple communities you can like just essentially just like I'm part of like a ultimate frisbee group that I get a lot of my freelance commissions from, and like my college groups are where I have this job from. So leaning into all the possibilities, like being open to different relationships from different places.
Yeah, definitely. No, I totally agree. Especially like groups that aren't necessarily the profession that you want to be in. Like, for instance, actually back in Mobile, I used to be friends with like a lot of comedians and I would do like all of their posters and all of their social promos. And and a lot of those like ended up in my portfolio because they ended up being really great projects that I was proud of. So just, yeah, like you said, just, even if the group isn't necessarily like part of your creative profession, like it's just super important.
For sure. All right, Abby, this one's to you. What have been the benefits for you for AIGA, if any, from college to the real world? And then as an animator, I'll ask you the next part in a second.
Okay. Well, I think the AIGA was really important for me because it kind of gave me a perspective of what my work was like outside of the school environment. And like Janet and Rachel, they were like amazing professors to begin with, but I don't know, as soon as I went to that portfolio review and one of the professionals was like, oh, you really like Avenir a lot, like the font. And I didn't even realize, like I literally put Avenir in like all of my work. Like, and I like didn't even like realize that until after I left.
Name. That's usually Abby, Avenir, Priscilla, right?
Yeah, it kind of worked out well because we use Avenir at Frame.io, but like for everything.
For us, this is it.
Exactly, yeah. So it's my Avenir safe space is like is Frame.io. But anyway, I don't know, just like but like other than like font choices, just like having that professional perspective. And I don't know, I just remember having one professional tell me that I'm doing so many things. Like back in school, I did illustration, I did logo design, I did t-shirts, I did literally like whatever I could. And they basically told me, hey, you should probably focus on one thing, like get really good at that one thing. And yeah, that thing for me ended up being motion design, and that's kind of like how I got here. So yeah, just I don't know, those portfolio reviews, man, they'll like those are so like, no, I'm serious. They're like they're so beneficial. Go to as many of them as you can. Like, go to the ones in New Orleans, go to the ones in Mobile, go like just, you know, like get as much feedback as you can early on.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So you have you're a motion designer, and so things change, as in all design, even in architecture, right, Jeffy? You have to keep up. So what are you doing to keep up with, is that animators, the women animators group, does that help you, or do you do skill shares? I don't really know if you'd get much deep dives, but maybe skill shares. I don't know. Do you do any kind of learning on a regular basis?
So I have, yeah, I do have a membership to Skillshare. I haven't really had time to like go and look at any of those actually for a little bit, but I used it like early on. School of Motion, I did a lot of like, I just recently completed the Cinema 4D base camp. So I learned like a 3D program actually recently. Like I say learned, I still have like a lot like more to do. I really like, I really like learning through personal projects. So I'm trying to do a little bit more of that, but I don't know, I'm going to like talk like, you know, sing Frame.io's praises for a little bit more here. Like the Frame.io really puts like a lot of emphasis on like self-improvement, especially like if it's skill related. And so like I was actually able to get like the Cinema 4D base camp through Frame.io. And I don't know, just having like people around you that support your, you know, your improvement is like incredibly important also. But yeah, the Punanimation group also, like getting to learn other people's workflows, and you know, not everyone there is like, I mainly work in After Effects. So whenever I go to the, like those brunches or like the meetups, like not everyone there's an After Effects animator. So I could learn from someone who's using Toon Boom or Flash or Cinema 4D or Blender, like just
People still use Flash?
I know, right? Well, it's called like Animate now, but like they rebranded because like no one likes Flash anymore. But we still call it Flash, like in the
In crowd.
Yeah, in the animator water cooler, we still call it Flash. But
so really, it's personal projects. So, what project are you working on right now?
So right now I'm like trying to use my Cinema 4D skills and like do a little more there's this one project I have. I guess I can like share my screen if you don't mind.
Sure.
Share screen. There we go. Okay, so I'm working on this one project where it's like a typography exercise. Thank you, Rachel Hatley. But it uses like Cinema 4D and Photoshop as well, and it's basically just things that I tell myself throughout the day.
Don't say dummy.
I know. Oh, and sorry, it's an expletive a little bit. But yeah, so I only have like 3 of these right now.
Those are pretty cool.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm like trying to like share my screen anymore.
It's at the very top in the middle. There you go.
Okay, cool. I don't know. So like, just like finding those like personal projects and like looking at like Dribbble and looking at like Behance and like other people's work and seeing like what they're doing and just like drawing inspiration from that. Like, it's just, I don't know, like that's another thing. It's like, you draw inspiration from like whoever you can also, like that's just like super important too. I feel like I kind of steered away from the question a little bit.
Because it feeds right into the next question. So Pim and Jeffy, I'm asking you the same one. How about y'all? How do you continue your learning, and then how do you have any side projects or personal projects that you do that with? Pim, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. So I'll interpret this a different way. It's interesting because when I was younger, a lot of it was, okay, I have to learn how to do more of my production design skills, right? Like all the hard skills that you need to keep up with. And like, I still believe that's important. but interpreting how AIGA has helped me grow beyond just my junior years, it's actually been more of like leadership skills and like project management, some of those soft skills, right? And more so in a way where I think AIGA and like your side projects and collaborations or like passion projects, right? They really allow you to grow as a leader and as a manager. And so they also help you affirm things that you knew you could do that your work projects wouldn't allow you to do, right? And so like there are certain things where I was like, why am I so upset that like this project management thing isn't working right at work? Oh, I think it's because my original art director taught me how to project manage in a totally different way, and I like that process more. So that means that this person at work is not wrong, it's just that's not my preference. But then it's like, oh, but now I have this side project that I can work on where I can really flex, improve, and show how I can also project manage, even if I'm a designer, right? You know, because it's like you can wear and toggle and juggle all these different hats, right? So AIGA has really allowed me to do that. So right now I am one of the co-chairs for the National Diversity and Inclusion Task Force for AIGA. And so a lot of that means it's having strategic meetings and conversations where you're not necessarily designing, but like in a way where like, yes, I'm using my hands to create something in Photoshop or in XYZ program, but instead I'm redesigning and re-engineering the infrastructure of what an organization should look like, right? Like what is, you know, like on a really meta layer, right? Like what is membership value? And how do you provide that? And how do you design that user experience for AIGA at large, right? So it's like, whoa, suddenly a totally different scale of what it means to design. But you're still using design practices,
means to learn, right?
Yeah,
And advance
exactly.
your
Yeah,
skills. It's a different skill.
Yep. And so, you know, like that's basically applying UX in a totally different dimension, right? And so that's fun. So AIJ really allows me to scale that. I also am one of the core team members for the Emerge team on a national level. Obviously, Megan is a part of that as well. Woot woot. But yeah, and so that's been incredible. Yeah. So getting to, you know, just kind of like use all sorts of different parts of my brain and like on one project has been really exciting. So I know that doesn't fully answer, but just to kind of tease out the side projects. And then the last one I'll say that's not AIGA related. We just wrapped up a summit for the DC hub of the UN, like the United Nations Global People Summit. And I was able to basically take what I do when I think about my design world and I'm like teaching people how to like design systems and apply that instead to, you know, like diplomacy and all these other things. So it's really cool to see kind of like the different avenues you can take with your skills and the kinds of conversations you can hold as a leader, like when you kind of shift what does it mean to talk about design and to train yourself as a designer and then to display that and then to also contribute to society. So that's like a lot all in one little breath of
I think that those are really important. I think Austin's right there with you at his job. He is a designer and he was hired. He's a lonely only designer in Mobile. I think there's other designers in Atlanta and nope, he's the only lonely. But he's doing so much more marketing and so much more business knowledge. And so it's not necessarily that he's improving on his Photoshop skills or his InDesign skills, but he's really improving on his leadership and the way he's talking. He's nodding his head, yes, just so y'all know, because I can see him.
my tribe.
All right, so Jeffy, what about you?
In terms of learning right now, I think just because I'm only a year and change into this job, I'm just learning anyway, just learning the ropes and architecture, figuring out my voice in the industry. Luckily, you know, I sit really close to my coworker. He's not here. I'm not pointing at him, but that's his desk back there. And you know, just like relying on their help and just knowing that I don't actually have the answers and that like kind of also learning to not let the fear of not knowing the answer kind of run my career, because that is something easy for me to do, is to let the fear kind of take over. But in terms of side projects, I you know, that kind of falls into my passion, like what my passion is in illustrating and paper cutting. So there, I'm always kind of like trying to slow down from the architecture world, which can be so like go, 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 go. It's like a lot of hurry up and wait. So I used the passion projects to kind of like, essentially I draw repetitive lines, very repetitive lines. And I use that to actually kind of like calm down, bring me back and like focus in and like figure myself out. So that's kind of where I try to throw most of my attention at the moment. Architecture is taking over my life, but which means I just need to go back into these projects and like really put some time there.
And people can find you if they want to look at some of your projects. They could go to Instagram at Cut Ink Studios, and it's 2 T's on the cut, right? Cut Ink.
CUTTINK Studio.
One studio.
One studio.
Okay. Awesome.
Can I add in one last thing just related to passion projects and things, just whatever your interests are. It's funny, they always go around circle. So I actually loved to sing when I was a kid, and my dad gave me like an audio program way back when I was like maybe 12 years old. It was like before Pro Tools was even out, I think, or like at least to like the common people. So
when I was 12, we didn't even have a computer.
Yeah. So I used to just like do audio production, and it was just for fun. And then I interned at the radio, and I did that as well. And that's actually when I was like, oh, I think I really like comms and stuff like that. But funny story, you flash forward 1,000 years later, and like I'm sitting in class, I'm learning like Final Cut. Like now I use Premiere, so I think it's Final Cut, right? Like, and I'm like, oh, all of this is the same thing as audio. It's just a layer of imagery on top, right? But then fast forward like 1,000 more years, well, maybe not 1,000, but the point is, doing Emerge, suddenly we were like, Megan can tell you this, it was all on the fly. It was like, oh, I think we should do like this video, like, you know, these interviews. And I didn't think they would say yes. And all of a sudden it was like, yes, we're greenlighting this, go and do that. And I'm like, oh my God, I haven't shot in years, right? I haven't edited in years. And suddenly I was like learning on the fly. And so continue to just follow your path, and like, don't let go of all your passions. They will find their way back into your career in all these sort of interesting ways, but it's almost like, it's like seeing an old friend again. So it's just a really good feeling to just kind of stay creative in that way.
And sometimes just saying yes and knowing either with your client that, hey, I don't know everything, or just adding in and saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to be willing to learn this with you while I'm doing this. So you maybe can't charge them the full rate that you normally would charge because you're learning, but you're also not saying no to a project just because it's uncomfortable and you don't know how to do it.
Just to piggyback off the cyclical thought, I like the style of drawing that I do is very related to drafting styles of architecture. So when I went to architecture school, we did draft a little bit, and that's where I was like, oh my God, I love line work. I love like thinking about line weight and imagery. I mean, here I am in the architecture world now, and everything's on a computer, you know. So it's funny how that goes back, and I'm like, oh, I still need to go draw. I was actually at a live drawing event recently, and I was working on a piece during a meeting, and there was an architect in the crowd, and I was like actually drawing like hatch marks, and he walked up to me later and was like, wait, that's the hatch mark for Earth. And I was like, yes. So that's, you know, just kind of like staying true to that and like not letting go of anything that you've done before.
That's cool. All right. So next question, we're almost at the end. We're almost to the lightning round so that we'll be able to ask other people to join in. So we may, anyway, so Pim, tell us about, as the co-chair of the AIGA National Diversity and Inclusion Task Force, do you have advice for anybody, for minorities entering or advancing in the design field? And Jeffy, you can chime in here too if you have any advice.
Yeah, I would say this advice is for anyone, and like everyone, but particularly for those who don't feel welcomed. So Douglas, who's my co-chair, we always think of it as the question first is, do I belong? And if you feel like you don't belong, right, then that's why on a pipeline level, people leave pretty quickly, right, if they don't feel like they belong. So what are ways to realize like you do belong, right, and to empower yourself? This is now general, that's like the lens I'm looking through, but now this is general advice for designers, because I feel like oftentimes, at least in places I've been, sometimes you're really lucky, you're like Abby, you get that team that's like, we love you, we believe in culture, all those things. So you are very lucky if you're over there, but I'm going to give advice to people who are like, I'm over here and there's fire around me and I don't like fire. What do I do? Right? So this advice is catered to those folks. The first thing to realize is a lot of times in those situations, corporate America, nonprofit, it doesn't matter, right? Like those cultures expect designers to be passive. They expect designers to only paint, you know, like by the numbers, change this pixel over here, as if that's all that we can do. Designers are strategists, and we create ideas, and we, you know, are, you know, the people who are going to bring an idea to life. I always joke and say, so, you know, like I go to meetings, and then after the meetings, I actually do the thing that we're talking about in the meeting, and then I go back, and the other people just go to the meeting, and they just wait for me to come back for the next meeting, right? And so there's that irony, right? Like where you're like in the meeting, you're just as, you know, like essential there, and then you go do the essential work and you come back, right? And so that's why, to me, like, design is not passive, and so you should not be passive in meetings. That's my number one thing, is to say, take an active role in your career and in owning it and in owning your seat in the room. And like, my top advice is to figure out, okay, how do you change manage, and how do you go to the front of the room? And I know a lot of times, I was actually at a different event where someone disagreed with me, but this is my advice, is to say, if you want to advance in your career, you're going to have to learn things like public speaking. You're going to have to focus on your soft skills and not just your hard skills, because I believe that everyone can learn all those hard skills already, right? Like, but the more that you feel scared or timid or this and that, or intimidated, the more, like, you have to learn how to overcome that and learn how to, go into the front of the room and to be confident and to speak for your work, because you never want to let someone else speak for your work. The more that you let them do that, like, and the more you grow in your career, like, the more that someone's going to take credit for that, someone's going to own that, and then you're never going to be able to grow, and you're never going to be able to present and own those ideas. And why is that so essential and important? It's because that's the only way that you can keep climbing. And so now this will jump back actually more for the underrepresented community. Like, this is important because we need to see you. We need to see that visibility of what you can do and what you can bring, your diverse voice, and what it is that you are contributing to this project, to X, Y, and Z, bottom line revenue, whatever it is, like, that is important. And the client should know who is doing this work. They, I always think of design. I promise I will stop like talking too much, just because I know we're going to hit that lightning round. But what I'm trying to say with all of this is, to me, design is about building trust with whoever your stakeholders are. And it, like, as a designer, if your design is good, then they trust you and they're willing to go with the process. They're willing to use this product X, Y, and Z. But they should know who it is that they're building trust with, right? It's not just yes, the creative director is important, but even at the production level, if you're a junior designer, that matters too, right? So it's just learn how to, like, run through the gamut, even if you're like, I don't want to play this game of politics, because it is important, because you are important. So, don't just put your head down and do the work. Like, that's important, but, like, also just surface yourself enough, at least your comfort level. But even if your comfort level is just, I'll speak up for one meeting, like, per week, that's important, because you're going to learn how to do that more and more. Okay, so I will stop rambling here just out of respect for time, but I could go on all day about this.
No worries. Jeffy, do you have anything to chime in on?
I think Pam hit it pretty much on the nose. I think it's just really being true to yourself, not doing something that you're not actually, like, invested in. There's just no way to stand out, especially if you are a minority and you're trying to, like, already try to, like, stand out, and you're trying to stand out for something you're not actually passionate in. You're handicapping yourself. So I'd say, like, check yourself, really. Are you doing something that you love? Are you actually enjoying the experience? Because I think if you are enjoying it, it'll be easier to speak out, to try to stand out in front of the crowd. So really, it's just check what you're doing. Make sure it's taking you where you want to go. Like, what is your 10-year goal, 5-year goal, like, whatever.
Okay, so here's the first. We're going to change one of these into a lightning round question, and then we'll open it up, and maybe somebody has a question. I think Megan's going to kind of direct people down if they want, and then come and stand here and they can ask you a question. Okay, so we'll start with Abby. What's been, and I don't know if you have a huge hurdle in your thing right now in your job, but what's been the biggest hurdle that you've had to overcome in your current job? We'll go Abby, and then Pam, and then Jeffy.
Oh man, that's like an easy one for me, because it's like imposter syndrome. I don't know if the audience, or you guys know what imposter syndrome is, right? Like,
so explain. So
okay, yeah. So imposter syndrome is basically just feeling, it's like complete insecurity, and it's basically thinking, like, every day, like, oh my God, like, I'm not as skilled as, like, everyone thinks I am, and it's like I'm only like a week away from, like, everyone finding out that I'm not actually good at my job, and I'm gonna get fired, and, like, the world's gonna burn. So yeah, it's getting over that a little bit. I think, like, moving to New York was kind of like, it was like that, on top of, I'm coming from, like, a kind of the old world ad agency into, like, this new, like, fancy, shiny, like, tech startup. And it's just like, oh my God, like, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And really, like, I'm still kind of, like, overcoming that a little bit, but really it's just like, it's kind of just like a matter of, like, asking questions and and really getting involved in your team. And at the end of the day, it's not really about you. It's about like the brand. Like it's about what can you bring like to the table. And I don't know, it's just so important to get outside your own head if you're suffering from that same thing.
Yeah. And Veronica says everything is A-okay.
Yeah, thank you, Veronica. I appreciate that.
And what's something you've had to overcome?
That was up for me. Sorry.
Yes.
I agree with the imposter syndrome, but I'll put it a different way just to kind of add a twist to it. It's, you have to get out of your own way. And so, you know, like that was, okay, I'm scared to speak up. That was like first, like when I was a junior designer, it was that. When I was moving from senior designer to my role right now, is the feeling of get out of your own way. Like stop thinking you have to just have design in your title to feel like a designer. Like that was the hardest thing to let go of, is like, wait, who am I? What am I? My identity has been wrapped up in this concept of I am a designer. And it was like, I can still like, I'm stronger in many ways as a strategist, and I can still do that through design. But, you know, like it was almost like I wouldn't grow as much or at capacity. And so it was like, you're going to go much faster. You're going to grow much more. You're going to contribute more to your design community, as well as to your colleagues in your company. Like when you actually just, you know, like stop thinking about the title, just do the thing that you know you can do. And then, you know, like everything else will fall into place after. So I know that sounds weird, but yeah, so just let go of whatever it is that your preconceived notions about yourself and your expectations for yourself. And that's really actually when you'll like fly, and all that like dead weight will actually just fall off because you're no longer focused on all of that.
All right. What about you, Jeffy?
I think right now, just kind of not letting fear cripple my confidence with this job. Just, you know, just trying to stay true to me learning, and just, you know, be honest about it and kind of keep moving so that I actually keep learning and not, you know, taking steps back.
Okay, so this is real lightning round. You're going to have answer 3 characteristics that you possess that can be you were born with, that have helped you get you where you are today. Pim.
Okay. Innovation, and can it be a phrase or not? Well, I'll say innovation, foresight, and then empathy. So innovation, like it's just kind of like ingrained in me, like fix this, solutionize it, you know, make something, connect dots that weren't even dots, you know, make them into dots, connect that line, right? And so innovation, and oh no, I already forgot the second one. I remember the last one was empathy.
But I think we understood kind of what it was, empathy, and so, but let's go because we have somebody.
Oh yes, sorry. Okay, yep.
Okay, Jeffy.
I would say being an extrovert, being flexible, kind of rolling with the punches, and caring about people that are around me.
Okay, Abby.
Determination, hard work, and positivity. Because you could be like a half-rate designer, but as long as you're willing to put in the hours and you got a smile on your face about it, I think that's going to get you like really, really far.
I agree. All right, so here are 3 things that you've had to work on that have made an impact on your career. Pim, we'll start with you.
I would say no matter what, fear is just the bottom line. So I'll just give you one, which is imposter syndrome.
Okay. Jeffy?
Caring for myself, not letting fear get in the way, and keep practicing patience.
I thought you said, anyway, I have an ear issue. I thought you said facial, and I was like, facial?
Patience.
Okay.
Patience.
I got it. Abby?
Insecurity, communication skills, and work-life balance.
Okay. All right. So then we'll finish the last one in a minute as a wrap up. So just say your name. Just stand in the light. There you go. Say your name and where you go to school or whatever you do.
My name is Sophie Eberhard, and I go to University of Mobile, and I'm a graphic design major. And my question is, did you ever feel undereducated for a job or project you had to do, and how did you overcome that?
Every time.
Answer that, right? Okay. Yeah.
So Pim, you go, and then we'll just do the same sort of lightning round.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Abby. It's like every single time you think you know one thing, but you're like, I don't know about the second half, and then you're just kind of winging it, really. But you know, that's okay. That's part of it. The secret that I'll tell you is a lot of times managers want that, because they don't want someone who comes fully packaged. They want someone who's going to learn on the job, someone they can teach, and someone who they can teach well, if that makes any sense. Because you may come and you're like, I know all this, and they're like, you think you do, but you don't really. And then it's almost like then they're fighting with ego, and so they'd rather have someone who's like, I'm willing to learn, kind of like what Jeffy's talking about. Like that's kind of your ideal situation right there.
Awesome. Jeffy?
I think one of the best interview advices that I ever got was someone was telling me that at an interview, the interviewer asked them like a question. And he's like, how would you solve this? And his response was just, I'd Google it. And I think that that's so true. It's just being willing to like, I don't know, and I'll figure it out, you know?
Abby?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I don't know. I kind of walked into my job thinking I knew how, like, I had to know everything. And so then I kind of came off as like, I don't know, like at one point I would like say something and my boss who's been like editing video for 15 years is like, you don't have to know everything. Like, you know, like it's totally okay. Like, we're not expecting you, like, especially out of school. Like, if someone is like expecting everything from you right out of school, then like, you do not want to work there. That's just like my opinion, but you know.
That's very good opinion.
Google is your friend. Google is definitely your friend. Like, I don't know, as long as you're a fast like learner and you're willing to learn.
YouTube now too.
Yeah.
This is Elijah.
Hey you guys, I'm Elijah. I go to University of Mobile, and I'm also a graphic design major as well. Well, in concentration, I'm actually an art major. But I do have a question regarding. Most of you have mentioned that you are all introverts, or at least an ambivert to some extent like that. Young in your years, I'm guessing, how exactly did you start getting into design, first of all, and how did that actually become a career choice at that point?
Question for you, just for clarification. Should we relate this back to introversion or not? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, because I myself, I was homeschooled for 7 years, and my only friend was a computer, really. So all I did was dabble on paint.net and Photoshop and things of that nature. I just, over the years, I created, but I'm myself, I'm afraid of presenting my material. So I'm just wondering how you guys meant to branch out of that little shell of yours and just go for it.
Okay, if you guys don't mind, I'll go first.
Yeah.
Okay, so my best advice, or I guess I'll walk it through two ways. The truth of the matter is, and like what I always tell myself as my meter for success is, I want my work to be so damn strong that it speaks for me when I'm not in the room, right? You want it to just work. You want it to just be there and people to be, I get it, right? And whether it's a poster, a slide, or, you know, whatever, right? Like, and so that's the first thing. So even if you're an introvert, like your work should be like, boom. And that's actually what I always did when I was in college. I was like, I was in a track where you basically were a copywriter or you were an art director. So it wasn't so much like design. So it was the business of ideas, because I was a creative advertising kid. And so every day we'd have to pitch, like we'd have to bring in something new and sell the idea. And I was like, I'm never going to win on words. Like, I can win on concept and on strategy, but I'm not a wordsmith. That's not my joy. Like, I love writing, but I'm not that. And so the only thing I can do is communicate my idea through my visuals or through my concept. Even if like, I don't know how to use Photoshop, I'll just do it, right? And so that was my challenge to myself, is make your work loud enough, right? And so that's the first thing. Second thing is, you don't want to, like, when people are looking at you, they don't, and I say this in a way to help the introverts in the room, like, yes, they see you, but they don't care about you. They care about the story you're telling. They care about the idea that you know, that's behind you. So you need to tell people about your process, about the story, and what made you passionate about this thing that's behind you, whether it's your portfolio or whatever you're working on. You should be excited about it, like what Jeffy was saying, right? So like, whenever you're presenting, you know, like, you're just communicating the enthusiasm of the seed of your idea and like where you want it to go and grow. So like, you just have to get people excited. So share what excites you, and that's what will naturally make you feel confident and loud and comfortable in your space. You know, it's not about, I have to present myself a certain way. It's, I want to share this thing that excites me and makes me so passionate, and I hope you will be excited too. So take them on that journey with you. Tell that story.
Gotcha.
Jeffy?
Your microphone is muted.
Oh, yeah, we can't hear you. Oh. I was like, wow, it's
I'm so worried about the caller in the short. I would say that, like, you know, I'm currently an extrovert. I feel very extrovert I'm an extrovert. But when I was in high school, I wasn't. But what I realized is creating in a vacuum gets me no better, because I have no influence. No one's talking to me, no one's looking at my work, no one's critiquing. Abby talked about, get like portfolio reviews. Like I think all of these things are important and need to happen for you to like move to the next level. So it's just kind of like, if it's important for you, you'll try at least, and even if that means just like talking to one person that you met, and getting like information or feedback from them.
Abby?
Pim said it really well. Like at the end of the day, it's not really about like yourself, like as a person, it's about the job that you're doing. Like that's like the beautiful thing about design for me, is that like you can just kind of like, I mean, you still have to put like a little bit of yourself in there, because like at the end of the day, like design is art. But the great thing about design though is that it's like for another person or another brand, or it's about a message. And so all the times where I've conquered my own introversion has been whenever I've focused on the brand and not so much about like how it reflects, like how I am being reflected off of that like logo or that animation, if that makes sense.
Good. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Elijah. All right. Just say your name and where you work.
Hello, my name's Fred. I work at an ad agency downtown.
Fred.
Yeah, hey.
Sorry, I know him.
I graduated from Fresno College too. So.
Sorry about that. Okay, go on.
So, as creatives and designers, we do a lot of putting out ideas into the world. But one thing that I notice about myself is, I do a lot of consuming content also. So I'm wondering if y'all could tell me like any podcast or any resources, and it doesn't have to be design related, or it probably needs to, but that you're into.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I know this one called Design Recharge.
I'm writing all these down.
Top of the list.
But I actually don't think you need to always do design related podcasts. So I listen to like Hidden Brain from NPR.
Mm-hmm.
I do listen to Honest Designers. I listen to Scotty Russell's Perspective
podcast.
And then Andy J. Miller's Creative Pep Talk. Yeah, I'll tell you. You can get those from me.
This has been recorded, right?
Yes, it's being recorded. Pim, how about you?
Oh, yes. So I'd say the same thing. I'm going to give you non-design related ones just to kind of like, have you listened to Radiolab? Or Snap Judgment, and Radiolab, Snap Judgment, anything from really NPR. But now my assignment to you as a creative is what I do is I kind of think of it almost scientifically. Like you do that like MRI on the creative process. How did they produce this? What were the questions that they asked to get to that? So if you listen to Radiolab and you hear all the layers of audio that they do, it's like a sonic dream, right? Like you close your eyes, you're completely in it, right? Theater of the mind, right? Like with sound. So now, like it's just fascinating to listen to it from that layer and think of it, if this is a Photoshop layer or file, and think about all those layers. Like it's so beautiful to think about. So that's one side. And then the other side I would say is actually what I would recommend doing is find a producer who you really like from a podcast or a movie or, whatever it is, and follow their work, right? Like the creator, like we usually follow like the directors, but like, especially when it comes to podcasts, listen to all the different kinds of stories one person is telling throughout like all the different things. So Stephanie Fu is like someone who started in Snap Judgment, is now in This American Life. And to see the kinds of stories she's been able to tell and bridge like throughout time is really fascinating. So that's my weird long-winded recommendation. And then I'll let Jeffy and Abby go. I'm talking really fast because I'm like, I don't know how much time we have left.
It's like with Pim, it's like, you have your book on like 1 for regular speak, and then Pim is like 2.0. You're really trying to get through the podcast. All right,
it's
Jeff.
a New Yorker in me.
One, it's The Way I Heard It by, oh my God, the guy that did Dirty Jobs. What's his name?
Oh
yeah, Mike Rowe.
Mike Rowe. Yeah, and it's interesting because I think kind of for the same reason that Pim says, he's telling you stories about people, but like you have no idea who this person is, and then he tells you who it is, and you're like, what, really? But that's just kind of like, it's reverse engineering that story. But like, how do you do it in a 5 to 10 minute podcast? That's how long each podcast is. So I'd say that one's a good one.
Awesome.
Okay, Abby.
All the podcasts I listen to are motion design podcasts. So all the ones that are, like, are design related anyway. And so I don't know if you dabble in motion design at all, but oh, you do? Okay. So Animalators is like a really good one. There's also Motion Hatch. The School of Motion has like a really good podcast that I'm featured in one of those, actually. So like, just as like a testimonial, but and then yeah, I don't know, other than that, like Dribble, and I'm a big Radiolab fan as well. I love Creative Pep Talk. I'm a big like proselytizer for Andy J Pizza. Like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, just finding like, just like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm always down for like podcast like recommendations as well. So
And just
yeah.
Diane, Perspective Podcast by Scotty Russell that guy is a hustler and he's just really hardworking. So
Yeah, like Andy J Pizza, you would really like Scotty because he's very motivational, and so he's really good. The other one I like I'm sorry. The other one I like was boogers. Now I forgot what oh, well, I don't remember.
Thank you.
Oh, 99% Invisible.
Oh, yeah.
oh, that was a good one too.
That one's good. Yeah. Okay. One last question, maybe?
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey y'all, my name is Julianne. So I'm from Mobile. I just graduated in May from the University of Mobile with graphic design, and just started about a month ago in my first junior position at an ad agency here. So kind of getting into the swing of things with that. But I was just curious. I know, Jeff, you talked about it a little bit. For my personal journey, I had no idea that I was going into graphic design until second semester of my freshman year of college. So what was your kind of journey of choosing graphic design, or even, you went to architecture, but eventually getting into design? How did you kind of find that path?
Everybody?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I know that's kind of a loaded question, so you don't have to answer it fully, but just kind of, a little blip.
Okay. Jeffy, do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Go ahead, then.
Start.
Okay. So I just realized, like, it goes back to like owning what you're good at, right? Because it's almost like we don't realize what we're naturally good at. And so it was just kind of like a round circle thing. Like I just loved art on one side, but it was also, I love strategy. And so design really is that formation of both. But really, like, in the room, what does that mean? That means I'm the one where, like, usually a lot of my work deals with influencers and deals with working with C-suite people, where like VPs and stuff like that. And a lot of times what they realize is, like, or what they don't realize is, it's a communications problem that they're trying to solve. They just don't know it yet. And so even if it's not creating a poster for them, creating XYZ, it's helping them work through their concept. And so I'm sketching as they're talking. I'm storyboarding as they are like, I want to give this presentation, but I don't really know. And so I'm helping them visualize what they're doing. And I didn't even realize that was part of design in a way. Like, no one told me to be a designer or whatever. And so I didn't go into school thinking I would be a designer. I took only one design class and only one video class when I was in college. And then it was really afterwards where I was like self-teaching myself everything as I was going. And so I don't know if this fully answers the question, but yeah.
So what did you major in college?
Yeah, so I did creative advertising, but it was a very specific program where it was like more business focused and like marketing focused. It was not like, learn InDesign like by heart. And so I was just really lucky. I had a great graphic design teacher who I just kept going back to even when she was no longer my formal professor. And I was like, give me advice on this. Like, what about that? But she actually gave me great advice. I asked her in my junior year, I said, hey, I really want to switch. Or I think maybe it was the end of my sophomore year. I said, I want to switch. I want to become a graphic designer then, like, if this is kind of the path, because art direction just felt like I was learning the concepts, but no one was teaching me like the hard skills, right? So I was like, I just don't think my portfolio is going to be strong enough. And she said, no, that the things you learn in your classes in terms of strategy are the things that will lift you up in your career the longer you go in life. And that actually proved to be true. Like, and that's not to say that, like, oh, stop taking your graphic design courses. It's my encouragement for anyone who isn't taking enough strategy or thinking about strategy is do that. Focus on that, because that's going to help you challenge your ideas and help you learn how to be more articulate about the stories that you're telling through the work that you're doing, whether it's through the presentations that you're giving about your work or about the actual presentation of the design, so to say, within the design work itself.
Cool. Jeffy? Sweet.
I was going to say, just I think I realized that I like being in the design world when I realized that spatial planning is challenging. And that also translated into me doing the paper cutting that I do, just because I have to, when I cut paper, I want to be able to lift up the sheet and it doesn't just crumble and fall, right? Like I want it all to hold and communicate a story that I'm trying to tell. So I think that I didn't go in knowing what I wanted. I actually went in, when I applied to college, I was I applied as an interior designer and came out as an architect because I just enjoyed that more.
Gotcha. Abby?
I don't know, like from a very young age, I wanted to do animation, but I didn't quite, like, you know, as I grew up, my dad was like, okay, like, when are you going to be an accountant? Kind of similar to Jeffy's thing, actually. But so I kind of had to like prove to my like dad that I could do, number one, that I could do like design in general. And then like once I kind of like broke into design, I was like, okay, like there's like 900 different directions I can go from here. And I actually I had a really great mentor, Alec Lewis, shout out. He was the one who taught me like motion design my junior year of college. And then I just remember like it clicked. I was like, wait, like I really like this one. Like this is the one. And like, cause I don't know, you kind of have to like find that one thing where you end up looking like for tutorial after tutorial and you like want to dive deeper and deeper and deeper. And like, before you know it, it's like 3 a.m. and like, you know, and the only thing open is like Waffle House. But anyway, yeah, no, but I don't know. Yeah. Just finding that one thing that you kind of like lose track of time. And like, if you can find that one thing, like you're incredibly fortunate in my opinion, but yeah.
That's awesome.
All right, we have one more question.
Thank you.
Do it.
No problem.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just say your name and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Vanny Bolin. It's short for Savannah. I'm a graphic design major at the University of Mobile, and my question is actually specifically for Abby. I've always been really intrigued by motion graphics and like animation and all that stuff, but I like have no idea where to start or where to begin. So like, what advice would you give to someone who's like intimidated a little bit?
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I remember opening After Effects for the first time and I was just like horrified. Well, especially coming from a design background, because like I'm assuming you're coming from like a like traditional design, like
Right.
posters. Yeah, I remember opening it and just having like the concept of like timing and stuff is just like, like
Another language.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know if University of Mobile has any motion design courses anymore or not currently. Okay. Just like tutorials, I would find like that one, like how to make a script logo, like draw on the screen, and then like looking up a tutorial for that, and then like learning the program through that, and then you know, at a certain point you've drawn enough like logos on the screen where you're like, okay, like this doesn't look quite as good as I want it to, like maybe I should learn animation principles, and then kind of just like start your goals like really, really small and like work your way up like from there. And I don't know, I personally like shout out to School of Motion. Like I did School of Motion's animation boot camp, and like having the principles all like laid out over like a like study course was like just so beneficial for me, especially because I learned best from more of a traditional classroom setting. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, just like I would say like have your goal be like really like just a really, really small goal, just like a 10-second animation that you want to accomplish. Look up every tutorial that you can. And I mean, that's kind of like how I like learned After Effects, other than, you know, having like a course about it. But
Right.
yeah, so yeah, I don't know.
Maybe
If
even
did that help?
like making that a side project, you know, like we were talking about side projects earlier, like create a series of work and that you've done it enough times that it might just become second nature for you.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've always learned fast through that too, especially like my first job, I almost went more into motion design because my boss, no one knew how to do it. And I was the only one who was like, okay, I'll open up After Effects. I'll learn Premiere, you know, like, and like, it really is just like those random assignments. The more you push them, whether it's random or it's, you know, like side projects, like Jeffy's saying, like you just learn little, like, it's going to be like, okay, so now I know how to make this thing spin, but I need to add this other element now on top of it. So it's like you learn how to make it spin once, then you do this other element. Oh, okay, now it pans out this way. You know, like here's the camera, you know, like all those things. Like you just learn it little by little.
and get the feedback from it, because people will give it to you, and then that's how you learn, because people will give you actual tangible feedback. Sorry,
And
Diane.
I interviewed this guy named Austin Saylor, S-A-Y-L-O-R.
I love Austin Saylor.
So good.
He, I think it's called lettering animation.
It is.
So it's a course, so it's online, so it may be cheaper somewhat than School of Motion, but
Yeah,
it's
School of
really
Motion.
specific
Right.
to lettering, doing logos or something. So that might be a good one to start. A little plug there for Austin. And so me and Jeffy all know each other. So, but he's
Awesome.
really, so you can look up that.
Awesome.
Okay.
I'm
Thank
going
you
to
so
post
much.
the link in the comments.
Okay. I think that's it. Oh, no. Yep. I think that's everybody. So thank you guys so much. And thank you guys for being here. My mom clearly had to go because she couldn't stay. I don't know. She probably lost internet. They have issues with their internet at their house. I think my dad pulls the plug or something. But anyway, thank you guys. Michael, thanks for coming twice. David, thanks for coming twice in one day. I really appreciate it. And you guys, Pim, I was just making fun of you in love because you talk fast. I'm so thankful that you talk fast because we got to get more out of you because you really are. I just want some of her energy. And Jeffy, just always good to see you. And Abby, I'm just super proud. Thank you guys. So thank you all who is here, who I'll turn around.
There. Can I just say a quick thank you back to Diane for building community wherever you go. It doesn't matter. I'll talk to someone, they'll be like, "Oh, Diane," that's just who you are. And so thank you for connecting all of us here too.
Well, I'm really excited. So because I had to use this PC, I don't have a way for people to connect with you. So really quick, share your Instagram handle, and then that will be the way for people to connect with you. So Pim?
It's just my name at pimher.com. So at pimher. Don't look that up right now because I have to my site is it. I'm one of those designers who you hate who doesn't
So
have their own
if you're listening, you want to do PHIMH.
Yeah, HER. Yep. And that's on Instagram and Twitter. Instagram is where I span the world. So find me on Instagram. That's the best way to get in touch with me.
And then Abby is ABBIEBACILLA. And then Jeffy is CUTTINKSTUDIO. Cut Ink Studio with 2 P's. Anyway, thank you. And you can find me at Design Recharge or rechargingyou.com. And anyway, an AIGA Mobile. And Megan wants to say something.
Emerge.aiga.org.
Emerge.aiga.org. EMERG. I don't even know how to spell it, people. It's on my shirt, but I'm too short. I'm on my tiptoes already. So there you go. I think it looks backwards to everybody, but isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Looks like I'm part of the Matrix. I'll see you guys soon.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.